that I'm participating in the world with my readership and with, you know, the kind of mark that I want to leave, that I think has changed. I have a bit more perspective on that. And I have a sense of this great gratitude and opportunity for being able to share stories with people.
And when you compare your early novels to your more recent ones, what has changed more, your writing style or your view of human relationships?
I love this kind of question because it's like the answer is both. And so maybe I'll just speak to both because my writing style, I don't know. I don't know if it's really changed. I mean, I really think that you could pick up any one of my books, something that was published 15 years ago or something that's going to be published in a few months, I have a new series called White Lights that's coming out in the US. It'll be out in June. In Spain, I think it's a bit later. I don't know the release date, but it's being translated now. I think you could pick up any of my books across a kind of a long period of time that they were written in, and you would recognize my voice. But there is, I would hope you would also see like the progress that I've made in the way I'm crafting stories and my like the scope of how big things can get and the world building. My view of human relationships, certainly that's changed. I think, but perhaps in a way like the new things that I arrive at as I get older, as I write more, as I live in like an evolving world. I think in a sense, I'm actually, it's more accurate to say that I'm sharpening the view of relationships that I always had. So it's not necessarily that it's changing, but that maybe it's refining. I have a great faith in the power of love. I think it makes us better people. And I think that the bravery required to like embark in a open, real romance causes good sparks of change in the world. And so even just to read about a great romance makes me feel like I'm going about my day in a different, sort of more generous and more open way. So yeah, I mean, that's a kind of one of the responsibilities that I feel as a writer is to try to give my readers that same feeling that when you read a story, when I read a great story, it changes me and it makes me kinder and more open.
And is there a book of yours that you feel was misunderstood at the time, either by critics or readers?
There are certain books of mine that, you know, all of my books I love passionately, right? I spend so much time with them and pour all of myself into them for the time that I'm with them. And then some of those books I kind of never get away from because there's a readership that continues to, like, we have a triangular relationship between me and the readers and this book. And that's certainly been the case for Fallen, for Teardrop, for a lot of my fantasy novels. But the past couple of novels that I've written, few novels I've written have been rom-coms. I always wanted to try to write comedy. And I love those stories. There's actually one of them is just here. It's called What's in a Kiss? And it came out a couple of years ago. And I just wish more people had read it because it's to me, it's very sparkly and electric, you know? And I think that it just didn't get as wide of a readership as I wanted it to.
And Fallen has left a mark on an entire generation of readers. How would you describe your relationship with that series today? With nostalgia, distance, or a mix of both?
Wow. I mean, I have distance from each book once I stop writing it. You know, the process of drafting and revising and like being in the thick of storytelling is so very different from the process of being out in the world talking about your book, doing anything that is not just me and the document and the characters and the world. So anything outside of that is a great deal of distance and a great deal of perspective. So um, I certainly have perspective on the Fallen series, but at the same time, it also feels very close because over the past, Fallen, the last book in the series came out maybe 12 years ago. It's been quite a long time since the series even wrapped up. Maybe 10 years ago. Um, but since then, there's been a movie made, there's been a TV series made. The TV series just won an Emmy Award, and now we're like looking towards the second season. So it's kind of it is an ongoing relationship that I have with Fallen and with Fallen's readers, and I love that. I mean, that's incredibly special, and I feel deeply lucky to get to have this kind of ongoing thing. So Fallen's always kind of close to my mind and close to my heart, mostly because I'm still participating in it. I'm still with the readers in the place where they are. Still, people are constantly like, how can I find this book? And where's, how to help me track down this edition? So there's a lot of continuity, at least with Fallen. And then, looking ahead towards the second series of the TV show, feels like it's going to be a lot of fun and get, even deeper into the saga of Luce and Daniel's story.
The idea of inevitable and doomed love is central to the series. Do you think you would write that type of love in the same way today?
Yeah, I mean, yes, doomed love is central to kind of who I am and how I see the world. And it's not so much that I think love can't be happy or simple, but I think through the trials and the obstacles in a kind of doomed love, because the point of a doomed love is not to live in the doom, right? The point of a doomed love is to overcome the doom, to suffer through the challenges, knowing that it's worth it, knowing that there is a way maybe to break out of the doom and into like the glory of it all. That's why doomed lovers fight for their love. And that to me is the most interesting way that love can show its strength. So yeah, I mean, my new series, White Lights, also centers around an idea of doomed love, and a love triangle that makes it even more complicated. So yeah, I hope I'm writing about doomed love forever.
And what is the most unexpected thing a reader has told you about how your books impacted their life?
Oh, I mean, there are children walking around the world with Luce and Daniel's names. There are lines from my books tattooed on people's beautiful skin. These kinds of, more or less permanent gestures of appreciation of my writing, just, I almost can't handle how kind and beautiful I think it is. Um, I do, this question makes me think of one particular reader who wrote me a series of letters a number of years ago where they were struggling with a breakup and very, very upset. And they saw, as many readers do, and as I often do with stories that I love, they saw themselves in Luce and Daniel's relationship, and they felt that it was worth fighting for, but the person that they wanted to fight for didn't want to fight back, right? And I remember corresponding with this reader for several months about the love story, and I remember thinking, like, I'm always honored if somebody wants to see themselves in my characters, but the more I listened to this reader, the more I sensed that perhaps they had a different kind of love story, and it wasn't necessarily a mirror of Luce and Daniel's story. And so actually, I wrote for them and later published um, a series of short stories in the fallen world from the points of view of other characters. It's called Fallen in Love, and it has a story from some of the auxiliary characters. So there's one of Luce's friends named Ariane. So it's what does Ariane's love story look like, and how did she get her heart broken, and what did she do afterwards? And there's another character named Roland, who is an old friend of Daniel's. So what happened with Roland, and just a couple of like half mortal characters that Luce meets later in the series. Shelby and Miles have their own love story. And so I wanted to explore with this reader the idea that there are so many different kinds of love, and some loves are eternal, you know, but not all loves are. And the non-eternal loves still have gorgeous lessons for us and still prime us for the next great thing that's going to help us, you know, rise into the proper love story for us, the real one that we've been waiting for. And you know, a lot of readers now love that book too, but I don't think I would have written it if I didn't have that kind of close pen pal experience with this one particular reader.
The television adaptation of Fallen was recognized, as you said, with an international Emmy. How does it feel to see such an intimate story receive that kind of recognition?
It was fun. It was just it was a really fun night. I was not expecting, you know, I was surprised when Fallen was nominated. I was not expecting it to win. Walking up on that stage to accept the award was a pretty surreal experience. And I think, you know, a lot of times when these big sort of tentpole moments happen in my career, like in the world, I think about the kitchen table that I was sitting at when I first started writing Fallen. I used to live on this farm in Northern California. It was a tomato farm, and that's where I was when I started writing Fallen. I was getting my my graduate degree in fiction, and I lived in a little tiny farmhouse and had very little money and was kind of in the middle of nowhere. And I think about that like rickety kitchen table where I sat with my computer and started writing Fallen. And I used to look out my window, and there were these big like wild turkeys that lived among the tomatoes, and they used to just sort of run back and forth out my window, and I would watch the wild turkeys, and I would watch the tomatoes getting red in the sun, and I would write, you know, the prologue of Fallen. And I think like I compare that moment with the wild turkeys and the tomatoes to like standing on the stage at the Emmys. And I, you know, I can reconcile it and I can't, but that's like the continuum of this journey. It never ceases to surprise me.
And during the adaptation process, did you feel more like a creator, a spectator, or a protector of your story?
That's a beautiful question too. Thank you. I felt like all of those things. I felt like the creator. It was, you know, it's to be on a movie set, to be on a TV set for a project that is based on something that you have created. There is an air that, you know, kind of everybody treats you as if you are the creator. So it's not that people aren't doing their jobs and taking ownership over what they're working on as whatever part of the cast or crew that they are in. But there is a little bit of deference that I certainly felt when I was on both sets. I think you can make people a little nervous. They don't want to disappoint you. Certainly the actors don't want to disappoint you. I did feel that way. A spectator, yeah, I was also a spectator because there's something that I released the day that the books were published. You know, I let go a whole lot. I'm not going to do, I am happy to talk about the books and engage with my readers, but like my job of telling the story is essentially complete. And I'm passing the baton on to the, you know, for a long time I was passing the baton to the readers. It's yours now. What do you want to do with it? How do you want to feel about it? What will it mean to you? And then it's really similar to me, the experience that a reader has with the book as the experience that like an actor might have with the stories. Like I pass it to you. What would you like to do with it? I will sit back and watch and, you know, hoping that you trust the material, the original story enough to let it guide you. So in that way, like I'm happy to sit back and watch what else is possible. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm also the protector, mainly because not so much for myself, but for the readers, because I know that they care how how it gets adapted. They care very deeply. And so it's never been so much for me hanging on to, you know, certain dialogue exchanges or certain scenes where like this happened in the book, so it needs to happen this way. It's always been atmosphere, essence, and really like the number one thing for me is chemistry. So I remember going, and this happened both when I went to the film set for the movie and for the TV series, like, okay, yes, everybody, the directors, the producers, they really want to show you like the action scenes, and they want to show you like, look at this cool room we've, you know, what our production designer did to like make this surgical operation look so real. I'm like, cool. Can I see them kiss? You know, like I want to see it all, but like before I can relax and let my breath out, I really need to see these two people and what kind of chemistry they have. And then there's a love triangle, obviously, like Cam is a very important character to me, even though he's not destined to end up with Luce. His chemistry with her is sort of paramount. It needs to be just as good, but different from Luce's chemistry with Daniel. So I wanted the chemistry reads and I wanted the kissing scenes kind of before I wanted anything else. And if that was in good shape, which thank goodness in both adaptations, I really feel it was, then I could not let down my protector, but I could at least relax into my role as the protector of the series.
And do you think recognition in other media like TV changes the way you relate to your own literary work?
Probably. I think more in the past, you know, since I was working on the Fallen film, which started, well, I mean, the Fallen film took a very long time, but since I was on the set really and seeing how something like that comes together, which was about 10 years ago, I think, I mean, visual storytelling has always been an important part of my writing, like setting and description is something that I really like sinking into. But I think more now about how is like an action scene going to look, rather than just like what's going to happen for a second, and like, you know, maybe not so much like what the air smells like, but taking it at a grand view of it. How is it going to look, and how that is just as big a part of a reader's experience, I think, as it is like an audience at a movie theater or watching a TV show. So it's cool to learn new ways to look at your process. And I do think that was like a gift of being able to be on the sets and part of the development of these adaptations.
And when you start a new story, do you begin with an image, an emotion, or a conflict that won't let you go?
Recently, a conflict. I've begun with all three at different points in my writing career. I think when I was younger, it was probably an image. You know, like I would get a first sentence just from seeing something that would feel very interesting to me. I can think of an example of like watching a boy in a class that I took in college, watching a boy across the room peel an orange, and just like I was just completely transfixed by watching him peel that orange. And I wrote a whole story out of it. I had no idea where it was going, but there was something in the motion of his fingers and like, you know, the little I don't know if it's like effervescence that rises up from the orange when you peel it. It's really like a gorgeous moment. But the difference between me as a writer at 20 and me as a writer now is that like I had no idea where that story was going, which meant it didn't really go anywhere. Like it was just a little vignette that was kind of gorgeous. Um, Emotion, I think, is for me a better like a step in the right direction of writing a story that actually has potential to have a plot, which I'm always looking for, because that's the thing I'm doing my best to achieve when I'm writing, to be honest. Like I'm really just trying to get people to feel something. I want to feel immense and intense emotions when I'm reading a story. And it can be laughter, it can be joy. I mean, a lot of times it's best when it's like wrenching pain or like unrequited desire or something like that. I love to be made to feel that way when I'm reading. And so emotion is a hugely important thing for me to bring to the page. But the thing that I have the most success with as a writer in terms of like, is this actually going to be a book or not, is conflict. And it's not because I like it more. I actually much prefer emotion or images, but conflict leads to plot. And I think I realize now that as much as I love to work with character, character can never be independent from plot. Plot in a novel for me really makes the character. It determines who the character is. So I've got to personally to begin with the plot, to begin with the conflict, if I want it to go anywhere.
Your novels often are very intense. Which do you write from most often? Pain, nostalgia, obsession, or desire?
Oh, definitely desire. And all of them are part of desire, right? I think you can feel pain, nostalgia, obsession in the guise of desire. But what I'm most interested in is that yearning, that longing, and what kinds of things the lengths that we would go to to get what we want, to get what we need, whether or not it's good for us, right? I love to see the kinds of mistakes that a character can make, and I love to see the kind of you know boundless possibilities that a character can discover in the pursuit of longing and desire and love.
And what do you absolutely need in order to write well? And what things tend to block you completely?
Um, the thing I absolutely need is a hike with my dog first thing in the morning. I like really can't just sit down at my computer and start typing, even if I know, and every day I do know like what I have to write. I know that today's scene is going to be she gets on a bus, she goes to here, she meets this person, they have this argument, whatever. Like I know what's going to happen. But mainly what I don't know is how the character is going to feel about it. And that's what I have to discover while my body is moving, because I never do as well if I figure that out sitting in place at my computer. So there's a certain hike I go to that no one's ever there. I go first thing in the morning, I take my dog. We go our separate ways. I go into my head, she goes into the bushes, and we kind of meet up at the end at the top of the trail in the mountain. And I did it this morning because I had to write a very short kind of extra, like a deleted scene, a secret scene. And I went there thinking I have nothing. I'm so uninspired. I have no ideas. And I left, an hour later with the scene completely written. I had typed it into the notes app on my phone, and I just came home and like polished it. So that's what I need. That's what I need. And that's what I try to do every day that I am going to be writing. I also like quiet. Like I like to be at my house. I don't like the TV on. I don't like music. I just want to be able to like really enter into the world and not be distracted from it. Something that blocks me completely. when my feet are cold. Like I can't write when my feet are cold.
Many young writers feel pressure to follow trends or popular genres. How can a developing writer protect their own voice?
Yeah. I mean, I think if a writer feels a pressure or an urge to follow a trend, I would hope, and I think it's because they like that trend already. Like I know sometimes since I've been writing and forever also, um, like thrillers are a huge trend. And I've been asked by many editors, okay, could you write us a thriller? And I'm like, I won't. I can't. That is not, I don't like to read them. I could never write one. Like I have to draw the line there. But they're like, could you write historical fiction? Could you write a rom-com? Could you write fantasy? Could you write sci-fi? Any of those things? Yeah. If that's what I can do now, I can do that now. Because I love all those genres and I can see myself, falling deeply into like the craft of coming up with historical fiction. I have one historical fiction novel. It's called The Orphan Song. It's set in Venice in the 18th century during the Baroque music era. And I had no idea about Baroque music. I had no idea about, there was a whole generation of orphans who were trained to be like the best musicians in the world, singing and playing violin. And people came from all over the world to watch them play and sing. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know, I had no background in music, but I devoted myself when I was writing that book to this intensive research process, the same way that I did with researching the Bible and researching angelology when I started writing Fallen. I think that most writers can get excited about just about any idea, and just about any kind of research. So I don't worry too much about like, all right, this is trendy. Ooh, I love that. Let me try to do that. Like that doesn't bother me. In terms of, as long as you set your own limits, like don't write a thriller if you're scared of thrillers, which I am. In terms of protecting the voice, I don't know if voice needs protecting. Like I think voice is a lot stronger than maybe we give it credit for. Like it's not going to get trampled. It's not going to turn into something else. Developing a voice, yes, that's important. Kind of um, clearing out as much noise as possible so that you can hear your voice. Which it takes a long time to develop a voice anyway. Like you have to write a whole lot before you even have a voice. But once it's there, I think that no matter what a writer writes, it should be noticeable. And assuming you're working with like the right kind of editor who doesn't want to, really shape your voice into something else, that might be a tricky part. But genre, voice can transcend genre. So I say to writers who are tempted to write something completely different this time than last time, go for it. Have fun.
And what did rejection teach you that success never did?
Uh, Rejection taught me how much I care. Um, I wrote two novels, two full, multi-draft novels that I sent to kind of every publisher, every agent, every editor that I could possibly send them to. And they were, resoundingly rejected at the time. This was a long time ago. So I got paper rejection letters and I have a whole shoebox of them. I have like 76 rejection letters. And yes, there were days when I was like, okay, I guess, have I maxed out at 75? Is this the sign from the universe that I should quit? Probably. But I would find that the next day or the next week or whatever, like not too much time would pass before I was like, well, I still believe in it. I'm going to send it out again to somebody else. And if they reject me, they reject me, but I've got to try. I've got to keep going. So that kind of early rejection taught me, I'm not here to mess around. Like I'm here to get this done, and I'm here to fight. All I know, I knew because I worked in publishing at the time that all it took was one person to say yes and open a door. And I simply knew that each of those 76 people and counting wasn't my person, right? I just had to keep trying to find my person. And so there was a like doggedness in my determination to get myself published that I'm really glad I learned that I had. I'm so glad that, for example, like my first book wasn't accepted by the first person who ever saw it. You know, I think that way, you know, 10 years later, when there was a rejection like deeper into my career, I might not have known how worth fighting for this pursuit was. But because I fought so hard for it at the beginning and had to then write yet another novel and have that one rejected a bunch of times before somebody finally said yes to Fallen, by then I knew, like, I care. I'm going to devote my life to this. And so that's been with me ever since, and I'm grateful for it.
And if you had to give one honest rather than polite piece of advice to a young writer dreaming of publishing, what would it be?
Um, it's honest, but I think it is also sort of polite. I don't think it's impolite. And it's just to finish your stories. I guess here's the impolite part. Finish your like terrible stories. Even the stories that are really bad, still finish them. Because there is an art and there is a skill in completing something that you have struggled with. And when I first started writing, I had like a zillion ideas all the time, right? Like the guy peeling the orange. Oh my gosh, a whole new story, a whole new world, right? Like I just want to write that right now. And I would write 5 pages of the guy peeling the orange. And then I'm like, I don't know, what now what? What's he going to do? And I would give up, you know, and it would just be like this little thing that flittered away, right? And that happened with essentially all of my writing for a number of years when I first started. I don't think I ever finished a story, maybe something that I had to write for an assignment, but not in a way that I was like inspired to keep going. I would just stop when I stopped being inspired. And then I did that with novels too. Like I would start a novel, I'd get almost all the way to the end, and I'd be like, no one's gonna want to read this. I've got a better idea. I'll just do the next one. And finally, I met somebody right at that period of time. I think it was my second novel that I was finishing and I was about to quit on. And I said, I hate this book. Like I thought I loved it, but I actually hate it. And I have a much better idea for my next book. And she like grabbed my shoulders and shook me. And she said, you finished that terrible book because you need to know that you can do it. And I did not really get that at the time. I didn't understand what she meant, but her intensity and who she was sort of made me think like, all right, I'm just gonna take her advice, even though it doesn't make sense. And I finished the terrible book, and it was like a few more chapters, and I sent it out. That was one of the ones I sent out to everyone, and got rejected by everyone. And I was kind of like, Mo, why did you make me finish this book? You know, it didn't go anywhere. And then the same thing happened to me when I was writing Fallen. You know, I got to like 3 chapters from the end and I was like, ugh, no one is ever going to want to read this book. I have such a great idea for my next story. Let me just do that one. And then I heard Mo's voice. I was living far away from her at that point, but I heard her like, felt her shaking me, heard her telling me to finish my terrible book. And I almost didn't, you know, but I was like, well, I did it once. I know I can finish a book. Now I'll have finished, you know, this other book. Yeah, I mean, for a young writer, the difference between writing until you're inspired and quitting, or writing until you're inspired, pushing through it, suffering with writer's block, all of that agony, getting to the end, then knowing, because there's this incredible knowing that comes at the end of a first draft. Oh, I think that's what I meant in chapter 3. And what if this thing in chapter 8 turns into what happened over here in chapter 20? And now I'm kind of like going back and editing it and realizing like, I left myself this wonderful trail of breadcrumbs to make the second draft so much better than the terrible first draft. But I never would have known that if I hadn't just finished the first draft. You have to finish in order to be able to make something the good version, the beautiful version of itself.
I will take your advice for my book.
Yes, do it.
And a fan of yours wanted to know if the Netflix adaptation is going to continue or if it's just the first season.
Oh, The Fallen? Yes, it is going to continue. Yeah, it
Oh,
is in process. Yes.
we will watch it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with me today. I
You are
really
so
hope
welcome.
you write too many more things for me.
Yeah, I'm continuing to write, and I hope that you and your readers will check out White Lights when it comes out in Spain and everywhere else.
I'm looking forward to read that.
Great.
If not in Spanish, in English, it's okay.
Yeah, it'll be in both.
And it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you.
You too. You too. Thank you for the interview. Thanks for the wonderful questions.